Hello and welcome to Keeping It Real with Rory. I'm Ben Kaysen here with the man, the myth, the legend, Rory Huskin here in the studio. Rory, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me. How's it going?
Absolutely. Doing great. I'm excited to talk to you, man. You got a lot going on, and one of the big things you got going on, you got a billboard down here in town about your music. You've been doing music for a while. I want to hear the story behind it. So how did Rory Huskin get into music?
From day one, huh? So my dad was he played guitar. All his friends were in a band, and he'd drag, I remember, back when I was a little kid, you'd drug your little kids to the bar, so I remember him playing in a band and singing in a band, and then they'd have parties at my, at our house, and they'd have me come sing. They'd have me come sing. It was kind of cool. So
from pretty early on.
Yeah, so I learned how to play a couple songs, and my grandmother, I had great grandmothers back then. So I was like 9, 10, 11 maybe. And so my grandmother used to drag me to the nursing homes where my great grandmothers were, and there were several of them, not just one. So I remember they'd be having church and stuff, and I'd play my guitar and sing.
Yeah.
I was young, so here I was pretty young, and I was already a ham bone, so, crazy. But it was a lot of fun, singing for those older people, and I think they enjoyed it. And so I wanted to be a singer growing up. That's what I wanted to be, secretly, because, my family was in the roofing business, and to show any sign of weakness in my family was, and to say, look, I want to be a singer, instead of, I want to be a roofer, was kind of probably a sign of weakness, I don't know. It was just funny, but it was my dream. And so, as I got older, I remember at my wedding even, my little brother was my best man, and he got up. We both had tux on, and, we had the band, and we were playing with the band. It was kind of cool, So, I was
awesome.
singing and playing. And then after that, I'd go to to some of the clubs that I knew that my buddies were going to be there. And I don't know how we became buddies. We just did, I probably asked them to sing one time, and the next time I walked in, they were like, Rory, come up here and sing,
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool. Yeah. So that was early on. My grandfather played the guitar, my dad, my aunt, my little brother, and me.
Wow.
And so kind of weird, but in a 2 or 3 year period, they all died except me. And so, I was angry. Remember, we've had this conversation, and I was angry. Music wasn't important anymore. Self-medicating, getting rid of the pain that I had because of all the losses, and was more important than playing music, than singing. And so, I lost my music. I tell people I lost me, because that was me. That's who I wanted to, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, years later, I sobered up, It's been 20 years this year.
Congrats.
I haven't done drugs, alcohol, smoked cigarettes. I might cuss every once in a while, but, it's like I don't want to,
Sure.
But all the other stuff is gone. All the bad stuff's gone, and I focused on family and my business, and I have a buddy. We were sitting around my kitchen one day, and we were singing. I was just singing. I had a Bluetooth, speaker, and we were singing.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, and so that's what he used to do. Is he used to travel and he'd be in Barbados, and sing on cruise ships and stuff, and him and his performers, and so it was kind of cool. And so he goes, wow, Rory, I didn't know you sang. And I'm like, well, I haven't sang for a few years.
Yeah.
So a couple of days later, he he got a hold of me. He goes, "Hey, meet me at this address." And I'm like, all right, I'll be there. I'm like, "What are you doing?" You know. Mm-hmm. So I meet him. It's a studio. It's right down the street. It's Perfect World Music.
Yeah.
And we walk in, and I'm like, "Wow, I didn't know we had a studio in Pueblo." You know.
Yeah.
And so the guy who owns it is Carl Lucero. He was praise and worship leader over at Praise Assembly for years. He's big. He's got an Emmy with or Grammy. Is it Grammy? Is it music?
Grammy, yeah.
Yeah, Grammy. So he's got a Grammy with Stevie Wonder, you know, and did some work with some of the big names in the music business and stuff. And so I was impressed. And he said, you know, see if you can sing. And we sang a few songs. And he threw up his arms. He goes, whatever. He goes, you can sing. And so we sat down and we started talking. And
so what was the pressure like in that moment? Let me just ask. If you haven't sang much, you go into a studio, you're there with Carl Lucero and your friend. Did you feel any pressure in that moment?
No, not really. You know, of course, I've always thought I was pretty good. And then, you know, so later on, you know, we struck this deal. And so then I go like to voice lessons and I realized that I knew nothing. Yeah. So, you know, here I am, thinking I know a lot. And then, you know, somebody's telling me, no, don't do it that way. You know, you've got too much of, you know, and it was pretty, humbling really, you know, to figure out, but it was, I thought it was pretty awesome the way that, you know, and then I learned a whole bunch of stuff and, you know, we put an album together, you know. So Carl, he had a musician from Nashville had moved to Colorado Springs, and I don't know how they know each other. I think they know each other from Nashville. And so Carl called him. They started writing these songs, and, you know, they'd run them by me. They actually came out of my testimony, Sentenced to Live, if you've ever watched that. So, you know, we'd sit around and talk, and it's, you know, so we take notes, you know, and they wrote these songs, and I was like, wow, you know, I'd read some of these songs that they had written, and I'd start crying, you know, and because they really touched, you know, some of them really touched home, and then, you know, some of them I'd be like, yeah, it's not really. I'm like, this is what it really should be, and they're like, let's see if that fits, and so they'd put my sentence in there, so that was the extent of my writing, you know. But they put this album together, and it literally took a couple of years to put it all together and get all the musicians, you know, get the music the way that it was supposed to be, and you know, my soundtracks and stuff, and you know, I don't know all the terminology that they use, you know, but they mixed it all, and put it on an album, and, you know, then you send it off someplace and you get it pretty much digitally mastered. So they make sure that all the notes are on all the notes match with all. I don't, you know, I don't really, you know, how
they just do the whole production for it.
And then that, you know, of course, everything costs money, so it was like, you know, it wasn't free. Yeah. So I spent a lot of money, a lot of time. You know, it was 2 times a week for a couple of years that I was down at that studio.
And were you singing every time you were there doing that, or
pretty much? So, you know, so now we've got another album that we're working on, and I think we've got 11 songs so far, and they're pretty good. I think we made some decisions to switch some things up this time. But here's the big deal. The big difference is my voice this time. I'm already so far advanced than I was when we started, you know. So I don't really need the voice lessons this time. That it's, you know, I sit down with the words and it's like wow, that sounded really good, you know. So
what'd you learn from those voice lessons? What was that like?
So I can't remember all its tone, texture, you know, stuff like that, and I learned that you know, you can change that you know. So let's say the Eagles, you know, Don Henley is really I don't know if people know who Donnelly Headley is, but he's a little tough to sing. He's got a little high voice, but if you put a lot of like air behind it, you can, kind of fake your way through it. So,
Can you give us a little taste of it?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
That's funny. So,
but it's fun. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So, what's that like then? Run me through you're sitting in the studio maybe for the first time doing your own album. Is there a moment where it hits you and you're like, oh yeah, I'm here in a professional studio recording my own album?
Well,
what is that like?
He kept saying things like, you're going to be able to, go, your song will be right next to your, your favorite George Strait, or, they'll have to choose, George Strait or Roy Huskin. It's like, really? That's kind of cool, Yeah. And it was hard for me to grasp all that, So when we finally digitally mastered it and then we put it out to Spotify and iTunes, Amazon, it hadn't hit yet. So, I have one of those Alexas in my bathroom, And I take a shower in the morning and I'm like, Alexa, play the top songs of Rory Huskin. And for days it was like, there is no top songs from Rory Huskin. I can't find it. And I thought, darn it. And so, I had to play something else. And so every day. And then one day I said, Alexa, play the top songs from Rory Huskin. And it said, playing the top songs of Rory Huskin. And there I was, man.
That's got to be the coolest thing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Is it weird listening to yourself at this point, or are you used to it?
So here's a real funny side note. My producer, Carl Lucero, told me, when you get done with this album, you won't like it. I'm like, I won't like it. And he said, yeah. So every singer advances to the point where they look back on the music that they've done, that's done, and they hear stuff that they're like, I don't really like the way that, that sounds a little funny. And so I listen to it and I like it, but I think I could have done this different and that different. So, I think that it's just like anything else, the progression of knowledge that you get from, repetition is, it shows.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you mentioned that like earlier in your life, you didn't feel like your circle would really support you going after music. What does your circle now think about you getting into music?
I don't know. I have friends out there that are like, oh my God, Rory, I love your music. Yeah. I have, people that are struggling with drug abuse and stuff. A friend of one of my daughters, she texted me one day. She's like, she says, Dad, I sent well, first off, she was like just raving about this song. Mm-hmm. And a couple of days later, she sent me, she had snapped, screenshotted what her friend had sent back that she had sent my music to.
Yeah.
And it was, the friend was crying and, so.
Wow.
You never know. Even like this podcast, you don't know who it's going to affect. You don't know what people are going to think.
Sure.
So so just a side note. Yeah. I'm, and you guys have heard it before, I'm the president of the Pueblo Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I'm president of the board.
Yeah.
And I remember back when I was still in my addictions, cocaine and alcoholism, somebody dragged me down to one of the it was the banquet, the yearly banquet that they had, and I was kicking and screaming. I didn't really want to go. I went.
Yeah.
And Steve Foley spoke, and Steve Foley was a Denver Bronco, and he was like one of the toughest guys that I ever saw. I'd see him hit somebody and jump up like even like nothing happened, and I used to think I just don't think I could hit like that and get back up like him. He's just so anyway, I heard his testimony that day. And to me, I thought, if it works for Steve Foley, it could work for me. So anyway, so years later, I still look back on that day and think, my life kind of changed that day. And so when I get up at a FCA banquet today, I tell people, so we're family, FCA family. That's people talk about the FCA family. So if we're truly a family, and I tell them the story about Steve Foley, and I tell them, look, Steve Foley didn't know me. Steve Foley didn't know that I was counting on him that day to give his testimony, because still yet, it's been 30 years later, and I still remember those words like they were yesterday, his testimony. So here's the thing about FCA and people, and each one of us has a testimony. Each person has something that they go through, and really, I don't think that you go through that just for you. You go through that so that you can help somebody else pull through whatever it is that they're going through that was similar to your story. Yeah. So, so I tell them all, it's like each and every one of you have a story. Who's counting on you to give your testimony? Somebody's counting on you. So anyway, so you don't know what music's going to do. You don't know what this podcast's going to do. You don't know.
Sure. But just getting the story out there, and somebody who might need it, you can find it.
These podcasts are fun. Music's fun. So I get to hopefully help people by having a lot of fun, so.
What's better than that?
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So.
That's cool. What's your goals for your music in these next couple years?
Oh, Lord. I don't know. Tommy G had me out at Tommy G, and I did their little mini bands in the backyard thing. It was kind of fun. I opened for Jackie Velasquez, if anybody knows who Jackie is. She's got some really cool Christian songs and stuff, and cool. And I got her husband came backstage after we were done, and he was ranting and raving and shaking our hands and patting us, and I thought, that really made me feel good. I was like, wow, that's really cool. So, I played out at Bumpers. I was supposed to play opening night, and it got rained out. It was like a downpour, and but I played out there since then, and done a few other things. It's kind of fun. It's fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, I played on Mountain Country, the radio station. I went to their studio right there in their radio station, and played live on the music on the radio one morning. That was awesome.
That's awesome.
So
what was the pressure like whenever you did that?
Yeah, you would hope that if you do something 1,000 times that that it would be easier and easier and easier. So
sure.
I think that as long as you don't really think about what you're doing too much,
Yeah,
it works pretty good. The minute you start there's other, tips that the guys have told me, the band and my producer is like, don't really lock eyes with anybody, make sure that that you're paying attention to, the song. So I, like at Bands in the Backyard thing, somebody was like, waving, hey, Roy, and so I waved and forgot he was right. I missed a whole couple of words, and I was like kind of embarrassed, and I thought, all right, Rory, focus. So,
yeah.
As long as you're focused, who am I kidding? It's crazy. You're on live on the radio.
Sure.
I mean, how awesome is that? So
it's incredible.
Playing music, that's my dream. That was my dream when I was a kid. So
that's awesome.
So my plans, who knows?
See where it goes.
I'd love to be able to, sometime. I don't know if anybody knows who Zach Williams is. You probably know who Zach Williams is.
I think I do, yeah. He's
the Christian guy that goes and plays in prisons and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to go do that. I've already been in contact with one of the event director people up at Fremont County, and I sent him the video, and he was like, "Yeah, it's cool, Rory." I said, "No. I know it's cool. I want to go do that." And he said, "Let's do it." And then, of course, COVID hit. So, this pandemic has really got everybody's hands tied, and there's no concerts going on.
Sure.
We tried a little Facebook Live deal a couple weeks ago, and it was fun. Again, it was fun. It was all about the experience. Mm-hmm. It didn't turn out very well, but we kind of worked some of the bugs out, which,
That's good.
So there's always pluses, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's a step. Awesome. And then I got to ask, we did an episode just now about like your COVID experience. Obviously, you've gone through a lot of struggles with that. How are you doing, musically wise, coming back from that, now being able to hopefully get back to singing and all of that? What's that been like?
So I'm, this Friday will be 8 weeks that I've been home.
Wow.
Right? Time flies.
Yeah.
It's like, it flies indescribably fast. I mean, it's like you turn around one day and you're like, what year is this? How old are you?
Sure.
So,
you made so much progress in 8 weeks. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think that singing helped me, my recovery. So, I go, I always, say, Alexa, play the best of,
Yeah.
And, so if it was me or Brooks and Dunn or whatever it is, and I'm singing, and then you get in the hot shower and then, all of a sudden you don't have any oxygen and you're like, I was like, oh my goodness. So, honey, bring me the oxygen. So yeah, but I think that really singing from the COVID has probably helped my recovery, honest.
It's amazing.
That, and, I'm a gym rat. I love the gym.
Sure.
People are like, wow, Roy, it's like, why do you go to the gym? It's like, the muscles are a good byproduct, but what I really go for is to clear my mind, get my mind right, relax, settle myself down. So, it's one of those things that I've learned, and I teach that, or I tell people, that everybody needs to find a healthy alternative to the negative stuff that they did. If that's lifting weights, jogging, hiking, biking, swimming, I don't know what that is for them, but find a healthy alternative. Mine just happens to be lifting weights. So
that's good. Awesome, Rory. And well, if somebody's listening to this and they want to hear your music and support you, how would they do that?
They can, it's real easy. It's, if you'll go to Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, there's a couple other, Apple Music. I think it's on all the major ones.
Just ask.
But you'll just look for Rory Huskin or Sentence to Live. Or if you'll go to RoryHuskinmusic.com and scroll down, you can click on one of those. It'll take you right to the album and right to so yeah.
Perfect.
Most of those are streaming. So, if you have a subscription to iTunes, it's free, or Spotify or whatever. So
yeah. Perfect. Awesome. And then
it's pretty cool. Again, I could be right next to George Strait,
You mentioned earlier as well, you've got an album in the works. Can you tell us what that's going to look like? I'm sure you don't have a date yet, but.
I don't. And, of course, this last 3 months has put me out of the game. So
sure.
I was in the studio this morning and, and you hear with the COVID, people have their ups and downs. I think the day is like one of those down days with, the breathing type thing.
Yeah.
However, it's like, 20 degrees outside with a wind chill. And,
sure.
Of course, like I'm an adult and dressed myself today and I got this little windbreaker thing on. I thought it was supposed to be warmer. So, that could be part of the deal. So
I'm an adult and dressed myself today.
Yeah. You wouldn't know it by what I wore. I'm like, my wife would probably have a heart attack. Where's your jacket?
That's great. Awesome, Ray. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
And it's a lot of fun, man.
It's awesome to hear about your story because, I've been, getting to know you more as we do these podcasts and piecing the pieces together of who Rory Huskin is. The music part's always interested me and it's just cool.
Yeah, it's, look, if I could give it, I don't know, if I could give it all up to sing and really go perform.
Yeah.
I ask myself that all the time.
Sure.
If you had the opportunity, Rory, would you do it? And I've built my life up so much today that I really enjoy the things that I do, the friends that I have,
yeah,
my family, the business, relationships that I have. I don't know.
I like it.
You know, I want to do both.
I think you're doing a great job of doing both. That's kind of what I'd say. You're doing some amazing things. Awesome. Thanks, Rory. I appreciate it. This has been Keeping It Real with Rory, brought to you by Cornerstone Roofing. Cornerstone Roofing, integrity is the cornerstone of your business. You can tell from these podcasts that Rory really lives that integrity part. And you can see even in this story, just like, you can go listen to the other podcasts as well, that Rory makes that a really important priority for him. He also was able to translate that to his customers. Be sure to check out Cornerstone Roofing for that if you need anything roofing-wise. Follow them on Facebook, on Instagram, as well as find Rory Huskin on those things. Listen to his music and check out more of this podcast that comes out every week right here on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For Ben and Rory, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.